Launching a ship. How tough can it be? You roll it into the water, slap a name on the side, and smash a bottle of champagne like it's party. Sounds pretty easy, right? Well, it is not that simple. Time and time again, things go sideways in ways nobody saw coming. From a bridge that forgot to move to a ship that managed to flood an entire highway, here are 15 ship launches that went horribly, hilariously, and disastrously wrong. And trust us, you won't be able to look away. Let's start off with number 15. Canal tug error destroys Panama Cits. The Panama Canal is a masterpiece of human engineering, but even masterpieces have their bad days. One massive cargo ship sliding through the lock with what was supposed to be slow, guided precision ended up clipping one of the canal's guiding locomotives known as a mule. These machines are built to pull vessels with tight accuracy through the narrow corridor. But the calculations were off, or someone misjudged the distance. Steel crushed steel. The mule didn't stand a chance. It crumpled under the weight of the ship's hull like a toy, gears bent and wheels spun off track. There were no major casualties, but millions of dollars in damage and a lot of red faces. The cargo ship, barely a dent. That's the imbalance of scale down here. When things go wrong, the little guy loses big. And while the canal kept moving, this incident served as a hard reminder. Even after a century of operation, one misstep can still make the whole system stutter. Number 14. KMYN Sagara capsizes. Indonesia's Lemon Bay was supposed to witness a simple ferry departure. The KM Wihan Sagara had vehicles on board, passengers seated and engines running, but just a few hundred meters from the port, everything unraveled. Water began to creep in faster than anyone could make sense of. The captain tried to steer back towards safety, but the ship was already losing its balance. Within minutes it listed hard to the starboard side, tilting at an angle that sent chaos across the decks. Rescue teams scrambled into action. More than 100 people were pulled from the sea, though several were rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Nobody even knew how many had been aboard. The passenger manifest was a mess. While authorities investigated potential structural flaws, survivors were left trying to process how quickly a routine journey became a near-death experience. Some made it out with just their soaked clothes. Others never made it out at all. It wasn't a launch, it was a collapse in motion. Number 13. $10 million yacht sinks instantly. Some ship launches end in applause. Others end in lawsuits. When the 90-foot yacht Baden was rolled toward the water in Washington state, the expectation was luxury on display. $10 million worth of polish, performance, and pride, until the thing tipped like a paper cup in the wind. It didn't even get a chance to float. One of the launching dollies, meant to support the rear, dipped just off the ramp's edge. That split-second imbalance sent the whole vessel listing to port, and once it started, there was no stopping it. 6 people were on board when it hit the water sideways. They were rescued, dazed, but unharmed. The yacht wasn't so lucky. It slipped under almost immediately. The shipbuilder, New World Yachts, blamed faulty equipment. A week later, they closed their doors and laid off most of their staff. A floating dream reduced to a lawsuit and a wrecked hull. All that tech, all that money, and it didn't even survive the launch. Number 12. Russian cargo ship hits bridge in South Korea. Drunk driving looks a little different when you're commanding a 370-foot steel behemoth through the port of Busan. The Sea Grand had arrived the day before, loaded with nearly 3 million pounds of steel coils, but by morning, its captain, reportedly nursing the aftermath of a wild night, guided the ship into something that doesn't exactly move out of the way, a highway bridge, right at rush hour. Traffic was snarled for hours. The bridge took structural damage, with a section of steel sheared clean open. Authorities later confirmed the crew had little control once the ship drifted off course. No explosions, no capsizing, just a long, slow collision that caused enough chaos to halt trade and gridlock a city. The captain didn't have much to say when pulled aside for questioning. South Korea, no stranger to maritime logistics, had to temporarily shut down access until engineers could stabilize what was left. The ship, battered but afloat, limped away with more than just damage. Its reputation was shot. Number 11. Ship flips over during crane launch. At some point, someone must have looked at a boat, then at a crane, and said, "Yeah, we can just swing it in. It sounds harmless, in theory. Just lift the vessel with a crane, swing it gently over the water, and lower it down like a ballerina landing softly on stage." Except, cranes have limits, and so does optimism. As the heavy boat dangled in mid-air, the crane began to tilt, slowly at first, like it was thinking it over, and then everything gave way. The whole structure lurched forward, toppled, and slammed into the water. Not just the boat, the crane, too. It ended up sideways, tangled in its own mess, like some failed acrobat act at a construction circus. The operator, who probably expected an easy afternoon, found himself hanging in midair, upside down, in a harness that suddenly became the only thing keeping him from a swim. No one was seriously hurt, but that crane's dignity, well, it was completely gone. Number 10. NYC ferry crash kills 11. Morning commuters in New York expect delays, maybe a splash of cold wind off the harbor. They don't expect the front of their ferry to cave in like a car crash. But on October 15, 2003, the Andrew J. Barberi, packed with thousands on board, plowed straight into the Staten Island dock. There was no evasive maneuver, no slowdown, no warning. The assistant pilot had passed out. The captain wasn't even watching. And so the ferry hit at full force, tearing into the pier like a knife. 11 lives were lost. Dozens injured, metal crumpled where benches should have been. And all this happened because of a nap and a moment of inattention. The ship had a history too. It crashed again in 2010. Same name, different day. They said the namesake was a football coach, someone beloved in his community, but the vessel carrying his name has seen more grief than celebration. A ferry isn't just a way to get across the water. When neglected, it becomes a weapon. Number 9. Luxury cruise liner collides with bridge. They had just one job, and it was pretty simple: tow a brand new luxury liner named Pearl No. 7 gently down a quiet river in Zhejiang, China. But when you pair a 7-story cruise ship with a bridge that was just a little too low, you don't get a grand entrance, you get twisted chimneys, scraped steel, and a red-faced cleanup crew. The ship was supposed to glide under the Wenzhou Bridge, but elevated river levels after heavy rain had other plans. The top of the ship clipped the bridge, sending vibrations through the structure and leaving behind more than a few scars. Authorities launched an investigation into why no one thought to check the math. The ship hadn't even fired up its engines. It was being towed to a seaport for its maiden voyage. Now, instead of passengers sipping cocktails on board, the headlines were doing the cruising. And somewhere in Wenzhou, a bridge inspector probably called in sick the next day. Number 8. Venice tourist boat wrecked by cruise ship. Venice has always struggled with space. Narrow canals, delicate infrastructure, and then a cruise ship barreling in like it owns the place. It wasn't a freak gust of wind or rogue tide. The 13-deck vessel was being guided by tugboats when control was lost. Horns blared. People scattered. The cruise liner didn't just hit the dock, it rammed into it with force, smashing a smaller tourist boat and injuring 5 people. The footage is surreal. In a place known for silent gondolas and slow-moving water taxis, a steel skyscraper of a ship crushed everything in its way. Locals had warned about this. Activists had protested. But still, here it was, grinding through Venice as it belonged in the open sea. The ship was eventually stopped, but not before the damage was done. Venice has since tried to ban these giants from its lagoon, but too little, too late for those caught in that crash. It wasn't just a collision, it was a wake-up call. Number 7. Scott Explorer hits the wall. In October 2019, in the Netherlands, everything was in place for the launch of the Scott. The Royal Boda's shipyard had prepped the vessel, the supports were being knocked out one by one, and the hull gleamed like fresh blood under overcast skies. Then came the rain. It always complicates things, and today was no exception. As the ship slipped into the water, One of the stern ropes snapped without warning. The vessel didn't veer wildly or capsize, but it drifted with just enough force and angle to slam straight into the opposite wall. The freshly painted red hull took the brunt, scraping against the concrete and leaving an ugly scar on what should have been a spotless maiden launch. No one was hurt, but you could feel the tension in the air from the dock workers who'd just watched months of detailing undone in seconds. There's a difference between a rough launch and a careless one, and this one leaned uncomfortably close to the second. Number 6. Symphony provider gets stuck on the ramp. Everything looked polished and prepped. The launch ceremony in Leer, Germany had drawn a small crowd. The Symphony provider, a hulking cargo vessel meant to join the Netherlands merchant fleet, stood poised at the top of the ramp, towering and majestic. But when it came time to release the ship and let gravity do the rest, the front end just refused to budge. The bow stuck fast as if it was staging a protest. The back of the ship wanted to go. The front? Not so much. It sat stubbornly, dragging the momentum to a halt. Eventually, the issue was traced back to friction, a small oversight in lubrication or surface prep. Someone had to climb up and manually solve the problem before it could finally slide into the water with the grace it was meant to have. What should have been a proud, seamless debut turned into an awkward shuffle. Lear's shipbuilders got their launch, sure, but not without a moment of embarrassment. Number 5. U.S. icebreaker injures spectators at launch. A ship launch should be a proud moment. Cheers, applause, and maybe some confetti. But on that November day in New Orleans back in 1997, things turned ugly fast. The U.S. Coast Guard unveiled Healy, the first new icebreaker in over 2 decades. It was big, bold, and apparently a little too eager to make an entrance. As it hit the water, the sheer mass of the vessel threw up a monster wave. We're not talking about a harmless spray, we're talking full-on surge that crashed into the crowd like a tidal punch. Debris flew, people got knocked over. At least 20 spectators were injured, some with broken bones and nasty cuts. It was supposed to be a party. Instead, ambulances were called. The launch team was quick to blame miscalculations, but the real problem, someone forgot that a ship that heavy hitting the water would throw its weight around, literally. The launch still made headlines, just not the kind the Coast Guard had planned for. Number 4. Brazil bridge collapse after ship strike. Well, like others, it wasn't the loudest crash, but it was one of the most devastating. In Para, Brazil, a cargo vessel collided with one of the main bridge pillars just outside the city of Belém. The impact wasn't immediate chaos, but then the concrete gave way, and a section of the bridge fell into the river, dragging cars with it. Witnesses saw 2 vehicles drop straight into the water. Rescue divers rushed in, but no one was certain how many were inside. 5 crew members on the ship were unharmed, but they weren't the concern anymore. Local officials declared a state of emergency. Trade routes were cut off. The government, under fire for ignoring warnings about the bridge's condition, scrambled to shift blame and authorize delayed repairs. The Amazon region relies on that bridge for far more than traffic. Its lifeline infrastructure. And now it lay in pieces, because one vessel hit a crack that had been left to rot for too long. Number 3. Cement carrier launch turns into road flood. In the Netherlands, a country known for perfecting the sea, you'd expect ship launches to be clockwork smooth. But even there, a moment can go sideways fast. When the massive red cement carrier Norden was set free from its steel cradles at the Royal Bodie shipyard, everything looked routine until the vessel hit the water like a cannonball. Waves exploded outward, crashing into nearby roads and fields. People watching from a safe distance were nearly soaked. A few came dangerously close to getting swept off their feet. This wasn't a quiet slide into the river, it was a heavyweight drop that showed zero grace. Engineers blamed the hydraulic system for the speed and force, but let's be honest, maybe someone should have measured the splash zone. In the end, the ship was fine, the road, not so much. and the onlookers probably had second thoughts about standing that close next time a vessel decided to belly flop into the water. What do you think about this disaster? Well, don't be afraid to let us know. Number 2. Ship launch sends debris flying into spectators. It wasn't supposed to be dramatic. The ropes were in place, the crowd was relaxed, and the ship stood ready for its first run into open water. But what began as a textbook launch in front of cheering onlookers shifted into something far more dangerous. The ship, massive and unforgiving, slid into the water with too much force. The splash wasn't just water, it was a surge, a wall that crashed into the dock with so much pressure that the wooden fencing at the edge shattered like glass. Pieces of splintered timber rocketed into the crowd. One of those beams struck a bystander. Ironically, the one filming it all. Panic took over the cheering. What had been a proud moment turned into an emergency. Officials blamed miscalculations in descent speed and water displacement. No fatalities were reported, but several injuries were confirmed. That ship made a grand entrance, right, just not the kind anyone would want to remember. Number 1. Acacia destroys Kiel Canal lock gate. Germany's Kiel Canal is no backwater. It's a vital shortcut for ships avoiding the rough waters around Denmark. But even the most meticulously engineered canals can't save you from a lapse in control. The Acacia, a container ship built for long hauls and tight timing, found itself in a mess when it overshot its mark and crashed straight into the lock gate. These gates aren't decorative, they're solid steel, designed to handle enormous pressure. But under the Acacia's full weight, the gate groaned, buckled, and ultimately shattered into useless chunks. This wasn't just an accident, it was a traffic jam for international shipping. Engineers scrambled to assess the damage, and repairs stretched on for days. The canal had seen plenty of history, from royal inaugurations to wartime closures. But this crash was a modern reminder: no matter how high-tech the sensors, a wrong nudge at the wrong time can reduce centuries of planning to a pile of twisted metal and seawater. If you've enjoyed watching this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon in the next one.